Okay, welcome. Um, my inspiration for this podcast, and you're my very first interview. I think it's a cool story. Got Andrew Kap here, who wrote the book that I just read was the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. I'm still processing it. I think it's just one of those things that you keep picking up and kind of digesting. Um, and I remember, I emailed you and I was just going back to kind of find the email, but I'm just going to go like off my mind and heart here. Um, my mom found the book and she contacted me and was just super excited. And I will say, she'd be fine with me sharing this. She's somebody that really struggles with anxiety and worry, right? So she gets, which I know I'm a trained therapist, like worry is future focused, thinking, worst case scenario thinking, essentially. And the techniques that you offered just hit home for her. And she was the calmest I have ever seen her. And she's still maintaining this. She's practicing these techniques. So I was really inspired by her energy. And, she and I are very connected empathically. So I downloaded the Audible version and have found listening to it to be really inspiring because I can do it when I'm like going about the house and, just kind of have it on in the background. So it's kind of getting into my subconscious mind. But I shared with you in an email that it really helped to um, strengthen my relationship with my mom. And, I'm somebody that is empathic and I kind of feel other people's energy and I have trouble disconnecting from worry because I have my own struggles with that. So it's interesting because I feel like now she and I are accountability buddies. So if she calls me and is in a state, she'll talk about some of the techniques that she's practicing and vice versa. I will do the same thing. So, just by default, this has kind of happened, which is really, really awesome. And I wanted to, one of the manifestations that came up for me as I was reading the book, and this is something that the seed was planted for me about 6 months ago when I did a mystery school, and I was really tapping into what is one of my soul's purposes. And I really have found that I am really inspired and open up more in my own, with my connection to my higher self when I hear other people's awakening stories. So, not only the techniques that you're offering, like I really want to know how you got to where you are today. What what was your story? So I want to tap into that a little bit. Like the before tapping into these techniques, Andrew, and how you I guess bring this into your life every day now. And you were the first person that I asked to interview, and you said yes. And I think that that's also very befitting because here you are, a manifestation author, and you're making my manifestation come true. I'm taking inspired action. So thank you so much for being here. Um, if you want to start just sharing whatever you feel called to share about your story and who you are, and the floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And please, give your mom my best. It's always very gratifying when you hear someone's like it's always gratifying when anybody finds the book, but I take a very special professional and creative pride when it was recommended by somebody that they cared about, like someone close in their life, because to me, that's one of the highest compliments that you can receive is someone says, I care about this person and I'm trusting the author with them,
Mm.
with this content. So again, really gratifying to hear that. And awesome. I'm glad I'm helping you be one for one so far in your interview request journey. And I'm honored to be number one and looking forward to seeing who else kind of joins in and becomes part of this. So to answer your question, it's really interesting because I learned about the law of attraction like 20 years ago at this point. And it's amazing how time flies. But when I first learned about the law of attraction, it was, I was a young, struggling entrepreneur, and I was looking for, the secret to success and happiness and whatever else you might want to call it. And for me, law of attraction, for lack of a better term, was one modality of many that I was just dipping my toe into the pool of, just try to figure out and see if like, is this the thing that's going to get me what I want? And it was really interesting and really frustrating in that when I learned about it, it was a very hit and miss thing for me. And, it was very unreliable, for lack of a better term. And I would figure out a couple years later, law of attraction wasn't unreliable. I was unreliable. My implementation and my participation in this understanding in my life was the unreliable thing. And I actually, went back and forth for a solid 4 years, stopping, starting, and bumping into walls and just trying to make it work. And I kind of hit this wall where within the span of just 1 week, I lost my business and my girlfriend of 3 years. And it was this really intense, obviously intense week where I had to kind of have to look in the mirror and say, Andrew, whatever you're doing right now, it's not working. And you've got to change and something's got to give here. And I had this very weird moment of indignation simultaneously with an epiphany of like looking back and, all the thought modalities and this and that. And I'm like, well, Andrew, this whole law of attraction thing, whenever you actually did it and didn't stop, things would always tend to happen things would always tend to start working out for you. So you know what? I don't care what happens. I don't care when it happens. I don't care why it happens, how it happens, or anything like that. I'm going all in with this, quote unquote, law of attraction thing once and for all. And I'm always very quick to point out to people that when I say all in, I don't mean all day, every day, because to, force a smile on your face and
Yeah.
say, I'm going to maintain this energy come hell or high water 24/7, it's an unsustainable trap that sets you up for failure. And I knew, even as angry and as indignant as I was, and even as ready as I was for change, I'm like, Andrew, have common sense about this. Like all day, every day, it's not going to work. However, I was motivated enough to do what I had been doing that was working for me before I stopped. And that was just 5 or 10 minutes a day of gratitude exercises or scripting or visualization, whatever it might be, low pressure stuff. In fact, while I'm going along this lines, why don't I be a little even more strategic and let me, take some of the manifesting methods that I'd either learned about or developed on my own and let me tweak them even further to make them even more user friendly, to make them more enjoyable, to make them more fun, so that it's a thing where this is never a chore or an obligation or something that I don't look forward to, as is instead is something that I look forward to and something that I can really sink my teeth into, because that's how I'll maintain that consistency for a few minutes a day. And it was really interesting, Sarah, because like once I made a decision, I tell people it's almost like a movie, because like within two
Everything
weeks,
changed. Yeah.
well, 6 months, everything changed. Within two
Mhm.
weeks, I felt way better than anybody with a broken heart had any business feeling. Within 3 months, I'm in a brand new, way healthier relationship with someone that's much better matched with me, and to be candid, much better healthy. And I was also way more healthy for her. Within 4 months, I'm making more money than at any point in my life before then. And yeah, within 6 months, everything's different. I'm waking up happy and fulfilled. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I kind of learned the hard way. And we don't have to learn the hard way, but apparently I did in that moment in time. I learned the hard way that this law of attraction thing, if that's what you want to call it, it works when you work it. And all you have to do is stick with it without some kind of preconceived notion or pressure of it has to come in this speed and it has to come in this way. And instead, just be like open. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to feel good for a few minutes every single day, and I'm going to let things unfold without putting my foot on the gas, without giving myself any stress. And also, and this is really important, without being deterred by success. Because sometimes, as much as we have failure and we quit because of failure, sometimes we quit because we succeed, because something gets easy and we're like, well, I guess I don't need that thing anymore. I guess I don't need to lift those weights anymore. I guess I don't need to read books anymore, or whatever it is that you're on a path of some kind of form of life improvement. For me, it was about making sure that neither failure nor success affected my decision to do this for 5 minutes a day.
Wow, I love that. And yeah, I think this is good insight for people. So I want to pause there, like drink some water. What I'm hearing you say is consistency, and I feel like this goes with any new habit. I'm also, so in my day job, I'm a mental health coach and I help people create SMART goals and, creating habits with just one little change a day, right? And of course, I think when we do this for ourselves, like I'm my own hardest client to coach, right? Because I want to go back to the story and where you were before all of this, with what you feel comfortable sharing, because that's what I feel is really helpful for people, because if somebody's in a place where they're like feeling trapped and they're really struggling, right? And I think we've all been there and we hit these emotional walls. And I think that's just part of the human journey. I really believe we're souls having this human experience. So I've got the Cosmo picture behind me. I think that, we can make a decision, as you're saying you did, right? To like, I'm going to start this practice and I want to change my life, but you had to hit that emotional wall. Um, what was it, a moment, or was it like a series of things? Because I mean that you had two major losses, loss of a, job, loss of a partner. Um, and do you think, because you said you were dabbling in law of attraction like prior to that for a few years, that the bits that you did kind of um led towards those changes and led towards the collapse, if you will?
Well, the collapse, I mean, to get to that part first, it was really, and I think people can relate even if they might not feel it. The collapse was a result of a lack of awareness,
Mm.
and to describe a little bit more, when you're in that mode again, for me, it's like I was trying to figure things out financially. I was trying to figure things out with the success of my company. And back then, I felt very trapped and powerless, but it was I didn't realize it then. It was a result of a lack of awareness. For example, I didn't understand how to properly market myself. I didn't understand how to properly put myself out there. I didn't understand, and I was always someone I like to think and hope. I always had manners. I was always about being fair. I never wanted to cheat anybody, but I didn't know as much as I should have or could have about a customer experience and customer service. Not that I was rude, but it's like now today, 20 years later, I could list, literally 100 things. I could literally list 100 things about that's in service to a customer or a client. That's just a thing to do that's going to enhance their experience that I just didn't know about. I had no idea how to do what I needed to do in order to invite success, even on a physical three-dimensional level, to say nothing of energetically inviting or attracting it, which is a whole different level also because there's
Right.
a lack of awareness there. My lack of awareness in the sense of failing to attract or magnetize something was I always inadvertently put pressure on myself. And this is the trap, people like, well, I've been doing law of attraction for XYZ years and it's not working and it's a scam and it's a sham and this and that. I'm
Mhm.
like, listen, when you are screaming, energetically and physically that you're not having what you want, well, then you're putting that out there. You don't even people don't realize that money stress in and of itself is a trap that keeps the finances from coming. That
Right.
relationship, that where's the man or woman of my dreams, lamenting over that and stressing over that on a certain level is perpetuating it versus, and by the way, I realize in many cases this is easier said than done until you bring it to the very simple, but as opposed to saying, listen, I'm trusting that that person is going to come in some way, shape, or form. And in the meantime, I'm going to answer the question, what would that person want in a companion? Let me work on being that. Let me focus in that direction in a healthy way. So instead of worrying and reaffirming that I don't have that person, let me take on the qualities and know that they're on the way and create that space, create that energetic space, create that psychological space, create that physical space so that when I meet that person or when the time comes, it's a way more seamless situation and a way more seamless unfolding of events.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is, I mean, essentially you're talking about doing the inner work. You're talking about it in that sense from the external, like, okay, what would a partner want? What qualities, and how can I bring that out in myself, which takes work, right? With your company and not understanding the customer service experience as much, I see that as you're really expanding your compassion. You're really expanding your empathy of other people and what they want. Um, you know, of course, my mind always asks how. Well, how? How can you get from A to Z? And I like how you talked about the self-criticism, because I've been in that cycle at times as well. Like there's so much pressure on manifestation. And, I've worked with teachers that are, talk about the quantum field and, well, this could come into your life tomorrow. You just have to really focus on it. And when it doesn't come in tomorrow, or it doesn't come in the form that you expect, there can be a cycle of, beating yourself up. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it wrong. And I think a lot of people, kind of get hopeless when that happens. So as I hear, sometimes it is two steps forward, one step back. I don't know what your thought is about that, but seems like there's,
Yeah.
there's some shadow work element to it.
And the thing is, for me, I'm again going back to, self-awareness, versus lack of awareness. The best thing I've ever done for myself, the most productive thing I've ever done for myself is kind of analyze my own way, the ways in which I get in my own way. And, I think I don't know if this sounds almost pompous to say, but I think it really comes down to everyone always should be striving to become a better person. Now, what is motivating that? Do you want to be a better person because you want to meet the love of your life? Do you want to be a better person because it's going to make you rich and famous? Do you want to be a better person just for the sake of being a better person? Most people would probably try to like sound like a wise man on the mountain on high and say, "Oh, you just have to be a better person for the sake of being a better person." And I would actually say, well, ideally, yes. However, there's a caveat to that. I say the really most powerful thing is whatever is going to motivate you the most to be a better person,
Okay, I like
whether it's
that.
money, whether it's relationships, whatever it is, it's like you don't have to feel bad about being selfish because you are
Sure.
being motivated in the direction of being a better person. When I say a better person, I mean get compassion, empathy, kindness, resilience, warmth, confidence. And whatever other qualities that are involved in not only making you a happier and more fulfilled person, but by automatic results you being someone that could help facilitate that for everyone around you as well.
Exactly. Which, and they say as you start to open up to the law of attraction, it inspires others, right? I mean, that's what happened. My mom found the book. She inspired me. And it was interesting because I had kind of hit a wall. I'm wanting to make a career change right now. And what I'm really focusing on is gratitude. Like, I am so grateful that I have this position, this day job, and I would love, I would love more time. So I'm focusing on, when I have time, like now I have free time and I'm choosing to do this, can I do things that bring me bliss, and really savoring the free time that I have and just thanking the universe for it. Because it definitely shifts my attitude.
Yeah. And it's so much more I mean, everyone kind of realizes intellectually how crucial that is, but a lot of people they almost overlook going too fast how vital that really is in the sense that I think four of the worst words that you could ever combine together in one sentence in one specific order is I'll be happy when.
Uh,
Because if you're
mm,
waiting for the relationship, if you're waiting for the bills to be paid, now I'm not saying you're not going to be happy from those things. All I'm saying is if you're waiting for those things in order to finally give yourself permission to just enjoy life, well then again it's another inadvertent trap. Now, I could say like, well, with certain financial goal, of course I'm going to be way happier, which that's actually not true. What's really true is I'm going to have more relief because now I have more time. That money isn't about like the mansion or the car. For me, it's, oh, well, I'm buying time or I'm buying convenience or whatever it might, I'm basically buying the lack of worry, whatever it might be. But
mhm.
that in and of itself, whether that's a month away or a year away or a decade away or whatever it might be, the worst thing I can ever do to myself is say, well, I'm gonna wait till then to just be able to enjoy the present moment. I'm gonna wait till then to, go out and have fun with friends or meditate or read that book that I've been, kind of putting off or start that business or start writing that book I would want to do. It's like it's a thing where we always look at things so one-dimensionally more often than not, where we're saying, okay, since I'm not going to be happy until that thing happens, I might as well like clench my teeth and be stressed and feel anxiety and feel worry and not give myself the gift of just relaxing and breathing and just letting myself enjoy life in the meantime.
Yes. So, I mean, from my mental health standpoint, we call that reframing those thoughts. And I think it's an ongoing process. It does take willpower. So that's what I'm hearing you say.
So yeah, well, It does to a certain extent, but I know as well as anyone else how difficult willpower is a very weird thing because, it's finite. And for me, I realize like when it comes to the gym, like I've been in periods of my life where you couldn't keep me out of the gym, or really, I did mixed martial arts. You couldn't keep me a day from working out, where it was very easy and it almost felt weird to not really excessively physically exert myself. But then I'll take 3 or 4 weeks off, and then it's so much harder to get into. So I know what it's like to feel like for it to be seamless and automatic versus like trying to feel like this uphill battle of like, oh, I need this willpower to hold on long enough to build the habit again. The problem with something like that is willpower in and of itself. If there's not enough there, it's always going to be the struggle for people. So there's two ways that I've found that can really aid people if they're struggling with willpower, they just don't feel they have enough of it. Number one, it's a bit of cliche, but it's having a why, a big enough why,
Mm,
making that money, meeting that person that you want to just having a happy life, whatever. What is this big why that's going to motivate me to do whatever it is that I need to do in order for this to work? But there's also something else, and not to discount a big why. And this is what I love about this specific work and this specific content. For me, when it comes to being motivated and having enough willpower to do a gratitude exercise for a few minutes every single day, my strategy is let me make that moment, let me make that strategy, let me make those few minutes a day so enjoyable that I actually look forward to them rather than it ever being something that I even need willpower for. So,
mm,
and
like
this,
that.
you've read the book. This is how I explain it. Like in the beginning of the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, I go into what I call, I think, the perfect ice cream. And it's where you run up to somebody in the gym and you offer them, and you can tell that they hate working out, and you tell them, listen, I've got this really cool ice cream. And P.S., if you don't like ice cream, substitute it with cookies, pizza, whatever you might want. But you tell this person, I've got this perfect ice cream. It's got all the good qualities of ice cream, but none of the negative ones. And actually, if you eat this, I think it's magical. This magical ice cream, if you just have one spoonful a day, you don't even have to work out. You're going to end up with the body of your dreams. You're never going to have some trouble getting someone to do that because notice, not only did I call it a spoonful, meaning it's a small,
Mm,
manageable amount. Even if they love ice cream, I'm not even telling them that they have to eat a whole quart every day. They literally just one spoonful. Like they don't need willpower for that because they love the taste of the ice cream. It's one spoonful and they're done. And when you liken that to just, you don't have to do a half hour. You don't have to do an hour. You don't even have to do 20 minutes of meditating. You just 5 minutes a day of a simple gratitude practice. That's all you have to worry about. And ideally, you enjoy that moment. It's something that you're not like, oh, I got to get this over with. It's no, it's
mhm.
something like, oh, this is great. I love beginning my day. I love starting my morning, or I love, finishing my evening. It doesn't even matter what time of day you do, whatever time of day works for you. So for me, whether it's having the big enough why or making the process or the strategy or the work, quote unquote work, making it actually enjoyable and not a commitment and not even requiring willpower, I throw willpower out the window and I no longer have to worry about it.
I like that. So again, reframing. I think
Yes.
the term, it's interesting, does have that kind of heavy connotation. So you're making it fun. And, I'm thinking of like play, just bringing in that play energy.
Making it fun, making it easy, making it enjoyable, making it user friendly, making it seamless to whatever extent I can, whatever any little tweak I can do. And it's funny because again, you go to Law of Attraction, and this is why I called mine the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, because sometimes, and by the way, there's some wonderful books out there, but there's also books out there that will repeat what they heard in another book or somebody else say, and they're like, well, you have to do a certain method in a certain way. And
Yes.
then it's like, okay, in other words, like unless you're standing on your head when you're meditating, thinking about the thing that you want, you're not going to get it. It's like, no, you don't have to stand on your head. Well, you have to do it for 25 minutes. No, you don't have to do it for 25 minutes. Well, you have to repeat it 50 times. No, you don't have to repeat it 50 times. These rules that became rules, that was a misunderstanding. These are guidelines at best. And the best thing that you can do is whether you're saying something 5 times or 25 times, whether you're meditating for 5 minutes or 25 minutes, whether you're doing something really easy or something really complicated, the whole point of any of these manifesting methods is to simply feel good while thinking about what you have, or thinking about what you want, or thinking about both.
Hmm.
Whatever you can do to make it easy to accomplish that, that's all you need to worry about. And once you figure it out, you're golden.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy lemon
I love
squeezy.
it. And I want to dive more into that in a little bit, but I
Mhm.
want to get a little bit more background with the story because
Yeah.
where I'm feeling like that inspiration can be really helpful is finding out more about where you were before you got into law of attraction. Like
Mhm.
what were your negative habits, or what was a struggle that you went through that you felt like you were stuck, or um,
Yeah.
any
Well,
shadow moments you want to share.
yeah. Well, before, so I think a great way to describe it, and by the way, this is interesting because I think this is a very valuable interview, and I think you're taking us down a very valuable road. But by the same token, because again, self-awareness, I want to really emphasize the fact that notice how I'm always naturally going to the solution part rather than the problem part. It's because I'm in that habit of doing it, and it's an automatic, seamless thing. And I wasn't always like that, but I want to emphasize that I'm doing that because anyone out there right now who is defaulting to more of a negative, more of a worry, more of something like that, just understand when you engage in something 5 minutes a day, you build up those muscles so that automatically you're going to the solution. But to answer your question, because
I like that. Yeah.
I don't want to
Because I
pass. I
think
just
that
want to
that's
get that.
people need
I
help
didn't
with
want
that.
to give up that moment of opportunity there.
Thank
A
you.
good way to describe it was really a failure and a lack of awareness of understanding that the extraordinary actually um is possible, not is actually probable, and is the normal day experience if you want to be a successful person. And to give you a specific example, I remember in 2003, I was we'll take us back. This is like the AOL instant messenger
Oh
days when
yeah.
people were like on AOL. And I remember I was, instant messaging with a friend of mine, and it was early on, well, not early, it was late enough that I was already frustrated in my business. And I remember telling him all these things that were going wrong. So to answer
Mhm.
your question within the Sarah, I was always noticing what was wrong. I was noticing what didn't work. I was always putting an emphasis on that in a focus on things that weren't going well. And I'll never forget because he stopped me. He's like, Andrew, stop, stop, stop. Scroll up and read what you've typed out to me for the last 5 minutes, and then tell me when you're done. I scrolled, read it,
Mhm.
like, okay, it's like, dude, you are the author of your life, and you just told me a really
Mhm.
poor story. You just told me a
Wow.
story of failure. You are programming yourself to continue this problem. And guess what? You want to keep, and I'll watch my language, whining and complaining. You want to keep whining and complaining to me about this. All you're doing is perpetuating it. All you're doing is programming yourself for further failure. All you're doing is maintaining this state. And he told me to read. He's like, I want you to read what to say what to say when you talk to yourself. I think it's so funny. My brain almost forgot the name of the book. What to say when you talk to yourself by Shad Helmstetter, and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's where I had that realization that what I had been doing again was just programming my brain and focusing on the negative, always seeing what could go wrong, always anticipating like, oh, well, this isn't going to work out, or here's why this is going to be a problem. Like I want to say I was the poster child for negativity because I think the truth is, the more personal something is, the more universal it is. I was really just like a normal negative person, which is bad enough. Like, because when everyone listening, you may think that you're like a very negative person. You're a normal negative person because everyone that's negative is on this level because it's part of a thought pattern. And it's something where any pattern, good or bad, it's very hard to get out of because there's a certain comfort level there. And we could talk about my definition of the ego if you want to go down that road. But again, just trying to stay on track and addressing your question.
Yeah. If
I was I wouldn't say a worrywart, but I was very easily swayed toward the negative. It was enough doom and gloom of always wondering like everything success felt far off. That was a good way to describe it. Success felt very inaccessible and far off and out of reach. It's like I wanted all this stuff, I wanted all this money, but it didn't even occur to me how it could happen, given the person I was, given the work I was doing, giving the level of product or quality of service I was providing.
That, yeah, there's a lot of good juice in what you just shared. Just letting it percolate. I think, when you shared that too, I'm wondering if it was, habitual responses. I know, society kind of conditions us to be negative, just
Oh
the
yeah.
media itself. And I have some clients that, they doom scroll, and they're, making a goal not to read the news or to minimize their news reading to, X number of minutes a day, because they see how it impacts their mood and their thoughts. But family patterns too. Do you feel like that was part of your past pattern?
Well, with family, it was interesting because, I won't call specific people out, but there was a balance there. There were certain people that were negative and certain people that weren't negative. And there was an influence there. I think um but for me it was more pervasive than just family because like you're talking about like newspapers and magazines. I
Mhm.
think a very telling thing that it didn't occur to me when I was younger, but I remember just like anyone else my age, like after school and you go home and you watch cartoons and there's commercial breaks, right? And I kind of think now like how obvious it is. But whenever they were back, when it was coming back to the show, they'd say, "We now return to your originally scheduled programming."
Mm.
And it's like, oh, okay. Whether it's intentional or inadvertent, programming. What you
Mhm.
saw on TV, what you saw in movies, what you read in magazines, what you saw on the news, which molded the society around you, that was programming. We're all programmed to Murphy's Law. Everyone knows what Murphy's Law is. Why does everyone know what paranoia is, but hardly anyone knows what pronoia is? And for anyone wondering, pronoia, with the way paranoia is like everyone's out to get me, pronoia is the sense that, someone's out, everyone's looking out for you, or
For you.
you got an angel on your like good things are happening to you. It's automatic. But why did it take me until, 3 decades in to even learn what the word pronoia, or even hear the word pronoia for the first time? Because that's not a regular part of movies and TV and culture. That's not Western culture. So for me, I mean, there was family. Some were negative, some weren't. But I don't put all the I put the responsibility more on like everything.
Everything.
Everything
Yeah.
around me was molding a vision, again, whether intentional or inadvertent. It was molding a vision that screams to people that you're surrounded by failure, you're surrounded by danger, you're surrounded by problems, you're surrounded by people that are after you, you're surrounded by selfishness, you're surrounded by greed, you're surrounded by poverty and anything else, any other negative quality that you're basically in this stew and there's no escape from it.
Yes, very true. And yeah, I remember feeling lack, going back to the cartoon example. I love that. As a kid, seeing all the toys and the commercials in between, or advertisements for McDonald's, and, asking mom and dad for XYZ. Well, you can't have that right now. And I remember constantly feeling this sense of lack, like, but they're throwing it in my face, 10 times a day. And I can't have it. And I think that impacted my belief, that I could manifest what I wanted. Because I was constantly getting no, you know. Um, and I see that now. I have a 12-year-old who likes to, go on YouTube shorts, and, there's so much that's being bombarded, even in people's private videos with, you know, makeup tutorials, and, she wants so many things. So I know that's going into another topic, but so how do you, as a parent, I'm playing with that, set those boundaries, but also let her know that she's a co-creator for life, like, um, I do want to go back to when you mentioned ego. I would just like to touch on that briefly and find
Mhm.
out your definition of that.
Yeah, and I always give, a little disclaimer here. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. What the term I'm about to give here, it's not the traditional textbook definition, but A lot of times, again, going back, why do I call it the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read? Well, because I think any law of attraction book worth its salt is going to, one, explain the law of attraction in a clear, easy to understand way, and two, provide user-friendly, easy to implement manifesting methods to help you use that content that you learned. But what I want to do was to add one more thing on top of it, and that was to, in addition to those two things, explain why do people learn about the law of attraction and they get really excited and really motivated and they start to use it and they actually start to get results and they still quit anyway. How does that make I did it for 4 years.
Yeah.
How does that even make sense? Well, this goes down to, I call it like the three minds. We've got the conscious mind and we've got the subconscious mind. And right in the middle, we've got what I define as the ego, which is way stronger than the conscious mind, but fortunately, nothing compared to the power of the subconscious. But the thing about the ego, as I define it, is it has one job in this life, in your life, and that's to keep you alive. And that's very good news or very bad news, depending on the current condition and state of your life, because whatever money problems you have, whatever relationship problems you have, even whatever health problems you might have, your ego is scanning the terrain, looking around, and saying, you know what? My person is alive. And I don't know if I want them making any kind of changes that might change the status quo or alter or lower the probability of their survival, because my job is that they survive. For example, maybe somebody listening to this wants to become rich and famous. But for all your ego knows is when you become rich, you're going to have distant family coming out of nowhere trying to sue you for your home, trying to take advantage of you, trying to, suck the life out of you. And if you become famous, for all your ego knows is you're going to end up with a stalker. All these things being threats to your survival. So your ego, it actually loves you, and in a misguided way, it's trying to protect you, but it sabotages you. That's why when you go on, that diet that you're trying and it starts to work, and you've done it for 3 weeks, that's why it's like a devil on your shoulder whispering, you know what? You could have a donut now. You've earned it. You know
Hmm.
what? You could take a day off. You know what? You're taking a day off. You could take a weekend off. You're taking the weekend off. You could take a whole week off. It wants to get you back to whatever wasn't working for you in terms of your happiness and comfort and fulfillment, but was working by its definition of your survival, because it is worried about living. And the key to this is finding a way of bypassing the ego, accessing the subconscious mind, reaching a better state in life, and being there long enough for your ego to look around and figure out, hey, my person is alive now in this scenario also. So now, six-figure Sarah or seven-figure Sarah, whatever new state she's achieved, well, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to protect this from now on because I see she's alive now also.
Yeah. This is the new status quo. I love that. Yeah. Um, yeah, we could go further into people talk about the super conscious mind, the higher self. And I kind of want to tap into the spiritual element too, as we kind of move into all the things that inspired you to do this book. What is your belief on us as co-creators, and fate, destiny, call it what you will.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I've been very intentional about not sticking to it is destiny or it's not destiny. It's my like I've experimented with many different ways of viewing life because I've said, let me take the viewpoint of destiny exists. Let me take the viewpoint of destiny doesn't exist. Let me take the viewpoint of, co-creation, which I still stand by. For me, my attitude is whether or not we are destined to do something or be something, the best productive, most responsible thing that we can do for ourselves and in service to ourselves is just assume that if we help ourselves, we will be helped along the way. So whether or not I'm destined to sell 10 million copies of my book, for example, right?
Mhm.
Well, let's say I'm destined to do it. Well, if I'm destined to do it, there's probably certain steps that I need to take,
Mhm.
like doing interviews, like doing YouTube videos, like advertising, whatever it might be. Okay, let's say I'm not destined to do it. Well, then I really need to do all this work on my own, like going on interviews and YouTube videos and advertising, meaning regardless of whether I'm destined or not, I need to just take ownership and self-responsibility and agency for myself in terms of doing whatever I think I need to do or should do in order to be in service to the strength of that message getting out there. And that goes for being a better person. Well, let me do my best to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to be warm, to be genuine, to be caring. And by the way, let me do this selfishly. And what I mean by that is I'm a huge proponent of being selfishly selfless, meaning be selfless and help people around you, but do it because I know in a selfish way that if I am able to help other people around me, it automatically creates a better world. And guess who gets to live in that better world? Me.
Yeah.
So I have no qualms about being selfish in the sense that let me be somebody that helps other people and is good to other people and is able to, if I can, help cultivate their success, their happiness, their fulfillment, because that does benefit me. If nothing else, for us as human beings, we always naturally feel a positive emotion when we're giving and we're helping someone else, and we see that smile on their face, and we receive their gratitude and we understand their appreciation. So we are co-creators, but I don't extend too far in my definition of where the co-creation lies because I know that I'm doing my part. I'm confident that someone or something out there is doing its part for me as well. And I'm very happy and very content to not worry about where or when we meet in the middle because I know that in some way, shape, or form, on some level, I and that force, that energy is meeting in the middle every single day anyway.
I love that. Got me processing a bit here. um yeah, there's a couple of directions I wanted to go with this, but I think just focusing on the selfish, I want to comment on that because I think it has a negative connotation in our society. And
Mhm.
I think that that's because, people associate selfish with I'm only thinking about me, 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 me. And, as somebody that well, when I was younger, I struggled with depression and I've worked with a lot of clients with depression. And when you are depressed, you're not selfish, you're self-absorbed. You have so
Mm.
much trouble looking outside of you because, everything there's a wall up and you just can't perceive the external world from, a bigger lens.
Yeah.
That's not selfish though, that's self-absorbed. When people are selfish and put themselves first, and I call it like filling your cup, you can't give from an empty cup. So fill your cup first, and then you have a full cup in which to pour, energy or reserves to others. And a lot of people, that like a metaphor like that works for people, but it's really challenging to get into that mindset, I think, when you don't understand. I think when you have that reframe isn't there yet, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's starting to change. Maybe I just have because of the content I focus on like social media, for example. I see all of the good things that people are posting because that's what I focus on. That's what the algorithms are giving me. But I'm seeing that, you know, I'm an energy worker as well. I do Reiki and have been a yoga teacher for a couple decades. And, it's they're the yoga teachers in my community. I can't even count them on in my head anymore. When I first started teaching yoga, I could count the number of teachers on my fingers. It just shows like how much we are evolving into, I think, being selfish and doing self-care and learning how to fill our cups. And you made me think of your email list because I love getting your emails daily. It feels like, oh, a friend is writing me. They're very simple, and you'll send out like a positive inspirational video. And so I've checked out some of the YouTube videos, and it's wonderful to see that there are so many people like creating accounts that where they're just focusing on positivity, and sending those ripples out.
Yeah. And there's space for that. And just throw one more quick reframe in there. Any person that's ever been on an airplane has gotten that very important life lesson
Oh,
of if the masks drop, you got to put it on yourself first. And it's because until your cup is full, until you've got that oxygen mask over your face, you are not going to be helping anybody anyway. You need to be coming from a position of strength, power, agency in order to be of service to other people. For me, you know, I self the quality of selfishness doesn't actually bother me in people. Malice bothers me. Someone that intentionally hurts somebody else. Somebody that because you don't need to hurt somebody else to get ahead. So someone that intentionally hurts somebody, that to me I have a problem with. But someone that's just looking out for themselves, someone that has their own preferences, that is invested in their own happiness, I think that's a very healthy. It's a healthy, natural human quality because that's how we grow. That's how we do better. It's if people were not selfish, we would not have the convenience of having this conversation on our own separate devices in two completely different locations with a crystal clear connection and no delay whatsoever. Because if no one was ever selfish trying to become successful and reap the fruit and benefits of that invention, it never would have happened to begin with. So motivation and selfishness, they have their place. And I'd encourage people, again, be a good person, but also, like you would phrased, fill your own cup, make sure that you're taking care of yourself because it's very important in the grand scheme of things, also.
And you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich. I'm thinking Napoleon Hill talked about that as well. It was really about taking agency, but also, having that compassion. And, how do you connect that with law of attraction? If somebody does act out of malice, let's say, in this,
Mm.
take me, how do you think that impacts
Well,
somebody?
I mean, someone's acting the mouse and taking from others. All they're doing is pretty much perpetuating that energy for themselves. So they're going to attract people and scenarios in which they're taken from. And it's going to be like this endless cycle. Where
Hmm.
for me, if I don't like a certain person, I just don't won't hang out with them. Like uh, people, I'm of the mind that, you don't show people what you are with your words, you show people who you are with your actions. So when someone has shown me through their action that they're just not somebody that's kind of like on that level of integrity,
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, well then you're not in my group, and that's fine. Go be in a group where people are going to stab you in the back, and that's on you. I can't save you from yourself. I'm not going to try to. Instead, I'm going to operate from this level where I'm at right now, invite people up here with me, and at the same time, hopefully improve myself and rise to a higher level above that. Because I'm far from a finished product. I'm far from perfect. So I realize that the best thing I can do, again, in service to myself, in service to life, in service to others, is to keep trying to be a better person. And that comes from terms of just inviting success, inviting happiness, inviting fulfillment, creating success and happiness and fulfillment for myself and for others, and always working on just trying to be a little bit better, but not judging myself too harshly if I have an off day or if I quote unquote fail or if I'm not progressing fast enough. I've let go of the idea that I have to progress at a certain speed, at a certain rate, at a certain level, because in my own personal experience, and everyone's different, but that's only slowed me down anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that sounds like self-compassion. And I think that that's really what I feel like your message is in the book, which is why I really resonated with it, because I have read a lot as well. And I've gotten really frustrated with some things when, you know, this summer I was trying the 3-6-9 method and the 5 and 55. And when I was doing writing something out 55 times, I mean, besides getting a hand cramp, I was not having fun. And I had to make myself, and I finally realized, I think I finished 5 days of doing that. It took me, almost 40 minutes to do each one. I feel like I'm back in school, and I have a teacher standing over me with a ruler, and somebody reminded me it's supposed to be about joy. And I think that, as you said, a lot of people forget that. So
Yeah. And by the way, this isn't the be all end all way of like the 55 or 5 by 5 method or whatever people call it now. I've never done that or allowed myself to do it with this because I've heard that like do this for 5 days and then your thing happens. For me, I recognize it's like, well, that's a lot of pressure. First of all, if the thing doesn't happen and I'm worrying about it, then I'm holding it back. And by the way, who says the thing can't come in one day? So for me, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the method, but I would advise people, whether you're doing the, 5 by 5 or the 3-6-9 or whatever they are, just make sure that it, like you would kind of really expertly said here, it's not a chore, it's not a burden, your hand's not cramping, you're not putting pressure on yourself. These things, in my humble opinion and experience, they need to be fun and enjoyable. And there needs to be an open looseness about this of, listen, universe might give me what I want when this thing's over. It might give me what I want earlier. It might give me what I want a month from now or a year from now. And by the way, any of these time frames, it might give me something even better than the thing that I asked for if I'm open to it.
Exactly. Yes. This or something better. So I want to, jump into your book a little bit here. I'm so curious about, as you say, because that, I mean, that is a lofty title, right? The last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. But I feel such a humble energy with you. And, I think, did you narrate your Audible book?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, even hearing your voice, I feel like, people's energy is, you can sense their energy more in their voice. It felt just so down to earth and grounded. And there, are teachers that I've tapped into that just have this is this way or the highway, kind of energy. And, I felt I was actually intimidated by Napoleon Hill. I've been tapping into some stuff by Neville Goddard, and he has some specific rules as well. Um, so I'm curious how you brought all this together, who you were influenced by, and
Mm.
how you came to this place where you really felt like in your heart, like this was all people really needed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess first I should probably real quick talk about the title because um when like again, I figured out, that epiphany, I don't care how this happens, when it happens, why it happens, and I had that result. That was 2008. It took me 11 years to give myself permission to write and publish this book.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, well, Andrew, if you're going to do this, if you're finally going to give yourself permission to do this, even though you've been demonstrating this and exercising this in your life in some way, shape, or form ever since, um, you can't just put another book out there. It's got to say something, it's got to bring something new to the table. Otherwise, what really is the point? And I thought to myself, okay, well, again, the more personal something is, the more universal it is. Can I answer and address the one frustration that I've had that I've never found in any other books? And by the way, that's not saying it's out there, but I haven't found it yet for all the other law of attraction books. And that's why did people stop stopping? Like, why do people stop when they're actually progressing? And how do people finally get out of their own way? I'm like, well, Andrew, if you can answer that, if you can deal with that, if you can achieve that, well, it's not the last law of attraction book you'll ever read. It's the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. It's an
Yeah.
accurate title. And
Hmm.
I also realize it's a dangerous title in the sense that I'm that's a lot of hype and I'm putting it up there for reviews, meaning I have to, walk the walk. I can't just, talk the talk. I have to make sure this lives up to the hype and it actually executes and provides a new perspective, a new paradigm shift, a new experience for the reader. So when I'm on the fence about this title, one final part came for me where I was thinking about somebody particular who I used to know, very cynical person. And I could imagine them like, because I didn't even know that I understood the law of attraction or implemented it in my life. And I can picture them if they even knew I was going to publish any book, they were going to how dismissive they were going to be about it. And if I had this title, how cynical and dismissive and how rude they would be about it. You know what? I'm just doing this. I'm giving myself permission because if I don't take this leap, then what am I doing for myself? What am I doing for the reader? Let me go all in and challenge myself to actually live up to that title.
Love that.
But the thing that to answer your original question, you can see I'm a bit of a chatterbox here. In terms of my influences, it's really across the board in life where, I got a new paradigm shift from Shad Helmstetter with What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Napoleon Hill was an influence. I read The Secret like anybody else, although I tell people like of all Rhonda Byrne's work, I thought her book The Magic, which walks you through 28 days of gratitude, I thought that was a better book in the sense that it was a more effective book. Because to me, that book, like I hope to do with mine, it gets people more in the mode of actually implementing and going through some kind of
Hmm.
manifesting method and actually engaging with the law of attraction. But also, I was influenced by, again, trying to grow my business, learning people about, marketing and human psychology and human nature. So for
Hmm.
me, it's all one big connected thing because And I want to be careful how I say this because once you know how the sausage is made, just it doesn't taste the same.
Mm,
But part of the thing about the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, which I hope and attribute to a lot of the 5-star reviews, is it isn't just the content, it's the delivery and the execution of the content. And what
hmm
I mean by that is you can't just tell someone about the law of attraction, especially when they've already read 50 books about it. What you need to do is put them on a journey, on experience where there is a flow to the content from word to word, sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph, chapter to chapter, where they glide through those 200 plus pages, where everything is seamless, everything's building on top of other pieces. There's epiphanies, there's paradigm shifts, but there's also space. So every time they learn something new, cool, well, now I've got something else on top of it that validates that and puts them into the next thing. And then I give them the methods and I give a clarity to the instructions and the directions. So for me, the influence about this and the execution about this is I am writing this almost like a 200-page sales letter that a marketing or copywriting expert would do. But rather than selling you on a product, I'm selling you, the reader, on why the law of attraction works and how you can specifically easily engage with it without any muss, any fuss, any resistance, any nonsense. So for me, these influences are about like understanding human nature, how people receive and accept and embrace information, and incorporating that into the writing style and delivery of the book.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like you said, this was sitting with you for a long time. So the information was there. It's like
Mhm.
you had been processing it and then you finally
Oh
took that
yeah.
act of courage
So
and
yeah, and so I'm apologize to interrupt, but I wrote it over. It took me 9.5 weeks to write, but also by that same token, you can say it took me 15 years to write because
yeah.
for 15 years applying and learning and but it was 9.5 weeks that I spent putting it in this form. So the reason I think part of the reason why it was such a quick thing, who writes a 200-page book in 9.5 weeks? A lot of people take a lot longer to do it. It's because I was living with that information and applying and succeeding and failing and learning from it for so long that it really was more about I didn't write a book so much as I edited a book. I
Yeah.
spit out a first draft and then just massage it so that it would make the most sense and be the most user friendly and reader friendly for people.
Awesome. Yeah. And I feel like that there's just an authentic energy about it. So that's what comes across, that it was like
Thank
something
you.
that just almost channeled out of you. I mean, this is your soul code in a sense. I'm wondering how, if you have any fun examples of, how the law of attraction has shifted, even since you've published this book, like, anything in your personal life.
Mm. Well, really, the funny thing is, I use the law of attraction to support the book, and the book is sold, I think, around 130,000 copies now, and for me, when I published the book, I mean, the goal and the vision is like, oh, let's get to 1 million copies and go from there. But
Mhm.
at the same token, like, I'd never sold 100,000 copies before.
You
So
self-published.
yes,
Yeah.
self-published. So no bigwig publisher supporting me, no marketing executives behind, like this is all me.
hmm
Um, so for me, I really am a different like not that our achievements should define us, but I think inevitably they do in some way, shape, or form. I before I published this book, I wasn't someone who had reached 100,000 people or
Yeah.
125,000 people or 130,000 people,
Mhm.
and now I am. So I can't help but operate from a certain level of awareness and consciousness in recognition of that. And it's a very humbling. I guess some people be ego driven. It's very humbling because it's like that's a lot of weight. Like, wow, 130,000 people have trusted me with their time and their money to focus on this content and give it a chance and provide space to see how what kind of impact it might make in their life personally. So just that in and of itself, I've changed or evolved to a certain extent because
Mm.
like I've learned how to carry the weight of that energy without it being an overwhelming or negative thing.
Yeah. You know how some people say, and again, this is a mindset, right? Oh, you need to have like a huge following before you market a book, or the belief systems. So you're saying you weren't like building off of a social media following.
No, the only people like my following then was friends and family. And
Mhm.
obviously it's grown now because, people know about the book. But yeah, like in just the way anyone else has friends and family in their lives right now, and they've got, Facebook friends or whatever. I mean, for me, I started from scratch and I did some intelligent things, but I also believe, the through the book, I attracted opportunities, I attracted interviews, I attracted um even like the audiobook, which is done really well. I didn't launch the audiobook right away. It never occurred to me to do that. And people kept asking for an audiobook version.
Mm.
And it was actually it was a struggle because you can't help but put pressure on yourself there also. Like right now, I'm in this live conversation with you, right? So if I cough, if I stutter, if I slur a word, whatever, move on, life goes on. But if I'm putting an actual copy out there that has to be professional and has to really deliver, there's an incredible pressure to enunciate and make sure everything is clear.
Mhm.
And anyone that reads my book knows there's some run-on sentences in there where you can get out of breath, where you kind of almost got to pace your own cadence if you're going to execute on that. And also, I didn't want to be a boring person, so I kind of let my passion and energy kind of roll into it for better or worse. So just recording the audiobook was a huge challenge and a huge endeavor. And just changed the way I even look at publishing because now whenever I put out a book, well, Andrew, now you've got to record an audiobook before you even hit the publish button on anything.
That makes sense. Yes. I have a lot of respect for voice artists. I think there are people that just that's what they do for a living, right? They do voiceover work. I've tried to record some guided meditations, and it is definitely there's a
Yeah.
little bit of
I,
an element of frustration.
I love the edit button. So I don't know, everyone's got their own way, but for me, I just do like a horrible job throughout and keep repeating sentences and keep messing up. And then I struggle in the edit room. Let me clean this up in editing.
Okay. Okay.
So for me, rather than trying to get like the perfect paragraph, Andrew, as long as you do one sentence at a time, you will drive yourself crazy later when you're editing it and cleaning it up, but you'll
Mhm.
have that sentence down and then you move on. So that's like
Mhm.
my perspective has always been to struggle in the editing room and not stress myself out on not doing a whole paragraph or a whole page without any mistakes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about Just Feel Good as I keep looking at the cover behind you?
Mm,
I have not tapped into that one yet. I'm curious how
yeah.
they kind of are companions to each other as well.
So here we started this conversation where you're like, you learned about me because your mom really enjoyed my book and she was so enthusiastically recommended it to you. And something really cool happened in 2022 where a friend of mine texted me and she's like, she went to like some kind of sales conference and she made a new friend. It's like, hey, Andrew, I made a new friend and we were talking about books and stuff. And she looked like she was like reading something. Like, what are you reading? And she like kind of like shyly showed her iPad and my book was on it. She's like, oh my God,
Oh,
I know
wow.
that guy. He's my friend. Like, really? And it's funny because the woman who was showing my friend, she was so shy and hesitant because law of attraction as a concept is so stigmatized. So I
Mm.
had this recognition that while a lot of people do recommend the book, a lot of people who enjoy the book don't recommend it because they will feel judged by their friends or family because they're giving them a law of attraction book because law of attraction is hooky and it's the secret and blah blah blah, right? So I said, okay, Andrew, what if you could write a non law of attraction book? What if you could explain the concepts without ever using the terms law of attraction or manifestation, with the exception of telling people, hey, I wrote a book called The Last Law of Attraction book you all need to read. But what if the explanations of themselves won't include any of that? And that's what Just Feel Good is. And, you know, I know, I guess this will be an audio, or if it's video also, you can see both books together. It's much thinner.
Oh,
It's less
yeah.
than 100 pages.
Okay.
So this is
Mm.
just a less than 100 page stocking stuffer intended just as a giftable thing where if you're worried, I mean, I think I think people should read the last law of attraction book you only need to read. But if you as a reader are worried that your friends or family are going to judge you for giving them a law of attraction book, you can give them just feel good very easily. And then you don't have to worry about that stigma or judgment. That's why I wrote that book.
Hmm. That's very
So I could
cool.
reach people that are resistant to the law of attraction and help them as well.
Yeah, I'm somebody that I actually shared it with a couple friends as well after, I picked it up after my mom and I got into it. And I will share, but I'm okay with people, people in my life know that I'm into to all the spiritual stuff. So
And thank you. And again, a lot of people do. It's just since a lot of people also don't, I was like, let
I
me,
love that. Yeah.
how can I serve those people? I'll do this.
And then it's more bite-sized in a sense.
Yeah, again, it's less than 100 pages, and I'm pretty proud of it. And it's interesting because I poured myself into all this stuff. So as much as I poured myself into the last Law of Attraction book you don't need to read, this cover I designed it in like less than a day. Very few drafts. It just came
Uh-huh.
out of me and it worked out very well. This one for Just Feel Good, um, hundreds of drafts. And like,
Mm.
minor shifts, changes, centering the word and deciding is it the size of the scroll. I mean, it wasn't like hundreds of different concepts, but I spent weeks on the cover alone. The book, I wrote the book in 4 weeks. I spent more time fixing the cover than actually writing the book.
You had to feel really good about that cover. I
Yeah, well,
love
the
that.
thing is, the cover and the title, they're so vital because without the right title, without the right cover, no one's going to read what's on the inside. So it's a very weird thing where as much as respect has to be given to the actual content and delivering on whatever promise you made, you also got to make sure that that promise is not only accurate, but even while being accurate is very attractive. So it's incredibly challenging and a lot of pressure because I want to make sure I really over delivered on that also.
And I'm thinking, just I haven't checked out that book yet, but I'm wanting to teach my, she's soon to be 13-year-old, my teenager about this. We do gratitude together. I gave her a gratitude journal for Christmas. And is there something like would Just Feel Good be okay for a teenager? Like, are there some
Oh yeah. These are all they're good for teenagers, both books. And it's really a question of like also patience because some teenagers don't want to read 200 pages. They'll be happy with 89 pages. So if you think she doesn't have
right?
patience for a 200-page book, then like Law of Attraction, like last Law of Attraction book you ever need to read, she can enjoy Just Feel Good. But when in doubt, I say, read it first yourself. And I trust you'll be very confident and happy that you can give it to her also.
Yeah, I like to find things that I like and then, share reading with her, like focus on a technique together.
Mm.
On that note, I noticed you do offer some courses. Do you do coaching as well?
Yeah, so I have a 90-day program called Gravity of the Cosmos. And the whole design of that is, listen, now that you've read this book, you can do it on your own. But if you need help and you need someone that's going to keep you on track to do this for 3 consecutive months, I'm going to send you a video every single day guiding you through either a lesson or a method or both. And every once a year, I also offer a 30-day gratitude program called Escape Velocity. I do coaching. If you call it that, I'll do coaching calls. But they're like upon request, meaning I don't market myself. I don't I'm like I don't make it a core part of my business. I just make myself available if somebody wants to do it. I'll usually be like, well, what's your question? And if I could answer them through email and save them the money of like paying for me, I will. But if somebody wants a session or consulting, I mean, I'm happy to do it. It's all about making sure I make time for that person and can give them my undivided attention and really make sure that they have a really good high quality session.
That's very generous of you. Because not everybody will do that. Will just give, of their own time, via email.
Yeah, I try again. It's like my and I don't know how long I'll ever be able to do this. Like at any point it could stop, but as long as I can, I try because you reached out to me for regarding this
Yeah.
interview and I replied back. I try to be very intentional because there's a stigma also with authors that they're too good or too busy to speak with their
Yeah.
readers. And I like bucking that trend. And I like, well, especially with this kind of thing, let me be the author that actually responds myself to emails and that doesn't send canned responses. And um, is hopefully a little bit more authentic and also in line because I think there's something really valuable about hearing from your readers because it lets you know if you're doing something right. It also lets you know if you're doing something wrong. It also lets you know, okay, is there another book that or has to be written? Is there a YouTube video that has to be made? So by keeping that line of communication open, again, it serves me and it serves the end user or the reader all at once. So it's kind of like a win-win scenario that I try to maintain.
And I'm trying to think of, yeah, what prompted me to email. When your email popped up, I think when I left an Amazon review, I think I got prompted for a review and I was so excited to share my review. It was like, I think your email popped up somewhere. I don't know if it's connected to your book. It's like, I want to share this with the author because as a writer myself, I love to know when people are inspired, by things that I've written. I mean, it's why we do it, right? It's why we share.
Yeah. Well, thank you, by the way, for the review and support. I really appreciate it.
Um, so on that note, I guess, yeah, I just want to know in the here and now, what brings you bliss, and you talked about your business. How would you define that and
Mm.
how you use the time that life gifts you?
So for me, it's very simple. And every day, and I kind of mention this in Just Feel Good. I give my daily routine. Every single day, I make sure to instill gratitude in some way, shape, or form. And the way I usually do it or reliably do it is I'll pull out my phone and I'll record a message of all the things I'm grateful for in my life.
Oh,
And I will send that to my friend across the country who does the same thing for me. So we every
oh,
single day we'll send each other a message. Sometimes I'll hear his first, which will inspire my message to him, sometimes vice versa. But for me, bliss is really just about growing without the pressure to grow. Like I'm pacing myself in life right now where I'm trying to improve, I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to grow, but I've let go of the false artificial pressure of having to be a certain type of person or at a certain level of life or whatever you might call it. Um, you know, to have a certain like this status thing or this goal or whatever it might be. For
yeah.
me, bliss is in letting go of that and just
Hmm.
to whatever measure I can, especially in these complicated, weird times that we're living in, to just enjoy my day-to-day experience in at least some level, always make sure at least sometime during the day I enjoy something. Even right now, like just I'm enjoying this conversation. When we're done here, I guess I'm doing it right now instead of when we're done. I remind myself that, hey, where, the younger Andrew who was just trying to figure and sort this out would have been so jealous that, you get to hop on a call and hop on an interview and have a conversation about this and help people learn about your book in this way. This is your work, Andrew. Like
Hmm.
younger Andrew would have been so jealous. So for me, it's kind of like thinking back and identifying parts where the younger me would be jealous and be like, hey, look what you got. And genuinely appreciating that and inviting more without putting any undue pressure on myself.
Jealous as in, would he have believed this was possible, or what would jealous?
Yeah, he would have believed it's possible, but he also would have been struggling, depending on how young this guy is. He would have been struggling with, no, I need to know the how. How did you do it?
Yeah.
What are the exact steps? What are the exact people? What are the exact circumstances so I can mirror it precisely, perfect equation. Like that's what a certain younger version would have been doing.
I resonate with that. I could see that. I like that analogy, going back to a younger version of myself. I think I felt like I had to master everything. I probably would have written out a list of questions too, but I had, kind of a format that I wanted, but I just wanted it to be kind of a heart inspired conversation.
Mm,
Because, I think when you just have conversations in the moment about your passions, that, sometimes brings about more than you could have expected, and I think my goal is to benefit the collective. I think as, you and I are having benefit from the exchange, it's sending out ripples, right? And when you mentioned the 130,000 people, I'm like, well, listen, more than 130,000 people have been affected by your book, right? Because all of those people are practicing and they're sending out ripples, right? They're learning to put their oxygen mask on, and then, in so doing can help others. So you've probably already impacted a million people
Hey, I I
if you
hadn't
look at it that way.
I hadn't considered that number yet, but I will now. So that's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, I guess we can't see the bigger picture, right? Hindsight's 2020. And that's something that I'm learning to enjoy the journey, right? And I think that, the techniques that you share really help because there are times when I want to be at the end point, right? And it's like, well, what is the end point? Because once you're, you know, let's see, I manifest, the podcast coming out, then what? What's the next project? Or like, who's my next interview as I'm, lining things up. Where's this going to lead to?
Yeah. And it's funny because, talking about like enjoying the journey, I'm of the same mind. And to bring a reframe in there, a lot of people, they think it's binary, journey or destination, right? Where to me, it's like I like to think of it as there are 5,000 destinations and not 5,000 possible alternate destinations. I'll pick one, but I mean 5,000 destinations that are on and scattered throughout the length of the journey. Because one destination tomorrow, for example, will be, working out and making my body healthy and feeling good after that workout. Another destination, maybe a week from now, will be another interview. Maybe another destination throughout will be an email from somebody giving me positive feedback on the book. So there's all these
Mm,
micro destinations that are scattered throughout so that I don't have to wait until that final destination to actually enjoy life.
yes, I love that. I think I hear I've got a little cat that's on, on his own journey in the room here.
No worries. The mic's not picking him up.
Okay, good. Um, so I also wanted to touch in on there was I want to backtrack to your what I felt that was an accountability buddy. I love that you do that, the voice record messages. I've actually done them just for myself because I process better in, with my voice than I do in writing now.
Mhm.
Um, so, I've left myself voice record messages or, an email of gratitude, but I love having the accountability buddy. And I guess my mom and I have been doing that for each other without, intending to do it. How did that come about? And is that technique in your book or is that just something that,
I didn't put it in the law of attraction book, but I did put it in Just Feel Good. I was trying to pull all this stuff. It's like I've only got 89 pages here. Let me make sure to
okay,
make it
good.
good and valuable. So the way that kind of sorted out, and the interesting thing is, it's a tricky thing finding an accountability buddy
Mhm.
because you've got to find this perfect mix of somebody that's motivated enough to do it, but also relaxed enough that like if things don't go perfectly, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Meaning something like me and my friends started this in 2018. So in January of 2018. So we just passed our anniversary of doing this. Um, and think about it, this is before I published the Law of Attraction book.
Mhm.
So the amazing changes that we've just seen in each other's lives in terms of, happiness, success, fulfillment in our
Mhm.
own ways has been incredible. But it was a thing where I had met him in 2015 and we were just good friends. And I was always kind of like flirting with the idea of doing this daily gratitude and having somebody to kind of like bounce it off with. And I don't think I'd ever mentioned this in an interview before. It had failed back in 2011 in the sense where I tried to start it with somebody where we were going to do a bet. We're like, if one person didn't deliver, they owe the next person like $5. And then just for that one time. So every time you messed up, another $5. And we ended up like each kind of like falling off and owing each other so much money. It's like, this isn't healthy or balanced. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And he wasn't the right person for it. I wasn't the right person for him. But this thing in 2018, me and my friend were like, we were the right people, the right mentality. There was going to be a bet. There wasn't going to be any money involved. It was just going to be a thing where let's send each other a list every single day. And we started by texting it. And then he was starting to get impatient, like, I don't feel like texting this. And I'm like, well, that's important information because
mm,
if it doesn't feel good, then you shouldn't be doing it. Why don't we try recording these messages and sending recordings and seeing how that works? And that was like within a couple of weeks. And then we had that going. And sometimes we mix it up and sometimes we'll text something instead. But for the most part, it was like this organic thing where we tried it, it kept working, and we kept sticking there for each other. But there's always this understanding that if one of us ever wants to quit, they're not letting the other person down.
Okay.
And for anyone out there that can't find an accountability buddy, you can easily pull out your own phone, record your own message,
Right.
and then just delete the message every day, or play and listen to it and then delete it, or whatever you might want to do. You don't need another person helps, but they're not a requirement in order to successfully do it.
It's almost like a live journal. Yeah. And do you have like when you recount the gratitude moments, I know for some people, like there are certain things that I feel grateful for every day. It's the same thing every day, like my coffee and, like just the little things that I do, as part of my routine. And then we also have those organic moments, right, throughout the day. So, um, do you have a certain number or does it just kind of flow? Or
Number in terms of number of things.
yeah.
It just flows, and I mean, it ends up becoming that for me. It often becomes just the same thing. So it's almost like a memorized
Okay.
script that I'm very careful of because I don't want it to be flat. But I mean, so I'll give an example around the book. I mean, I always mention how grateful I am for my readers, my listeners, my customers, my subscribers, my supporters. I'm grateful for the 5-star reviews. I'm grateful for the positive word of mouth. I'm grateful for the positive emails. I'm grateful for all the platform support, fulfillment support, podcast support. I'm grateful for everyone and everything that's in my corner in any way, shape, or form. I'm grateful for having sold 100,000 copies, having sold 125,000 copies, future pacing for having sold 1 million copies. I'm grateful for the good news today. I always mention how grateful I am for the good news. I don't say what the good news is. I'm just grateful for it. And it can come in any way, shape, or form. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for my vitality. So I'll rattle a lot of things off, and it gets to a point where almost um, it's dangerous in that I feel bad, like, oh, I said this thing yesterday. Now I have to say it today also. I don't want to like um disrespect anything I mentioned before. So it's kind of like a challenge in that way. But I try to keep it loose and keep it fun and keep it fresh, but also keep it consistent.
Okay. Yeah, that's just I loved hearing your list because I felt that heart expanding energy as you're sharing it. I mean, gratitude is such an amazing practice to just open the heart and bring us into that place of compassion for ourselves and for life. And I think that, I've talked to people about this. I've noticed this in my own trajectory when I've done gratitude or do gratitude. I'm like, it's okay that I do the same things, but sometimes, it's fun. It's like I challenge myself. I'm like, what are some new moments today that I can be grateful for? And it could even just be, I got to take a little, I call it a yoga nap, with some of my yoga props on my bed, listening to some music with my cat was cuddling with me
Mm,
afternoon. And it was just really relaxing, and it was, just it's snowy day here, Sunday afternoon. That was a wonderful moment. And in that moment, I said thank you. But I think even, doing it all as a lump, whether it's the beginning or end of the day, can be really powerful. I I do want to say I love that you don't put pressure on people. There's no pressure at all, obviously, but you just say 5 minutes a day, and it could be, you can play with doing it in the beginning of the day, end of the day, or a combination of those. Some teachers do talk about doing something before bed because of the subconscious mind.
mm.
I don't know what your
So
thoughts
I
are.
say that's valid only if it's enjoyable enough to do. Like, yes, doing it beforehand, doing before you go to sleep is going to benefit the subconscious mind, but if it's not something you're in the mood for, if it's something that you're too tired to do, I mean, if you just like the morning more, whether you do it in the morning or the afternoon or the evening or whatever, the whole point is just that you do it. And the most powerful and potent it's going to be is whatever time of day you enjoy it the most. If you enjoy it more in the morning than in the evening, well, then the potency of that moment is going to dwarf whatever benefit you would receive by doing it at night. You enjoyed it at night, then beautiful. But I'm more of the proponent of like whatever you're going to do that you're going to actually genuinely enjoy it. That to me is the key and the biggest and most important vital piece of everything.
So if rattling off the gratitude stops becoming enjoyable, play with another technique. Is that what you
Yes.
would say?
Yeah. Or mix it up, do something, you know, change the thing. Like, okay, well, you say the same thing every day. Like, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna mix it up. If I'm getting bored with this, why don't I just only focus on the theme of my body? That'll be my gratitude. Why don't I just focus on the theme of my relationships? Why don't I try something really hooky and look at everything in the room that I'm in and just be grateful for that? why don't just mix things up? We haven't spoken about scripting, which is, journaling about your life as if you're living your dream life and you're phrasing it in the present tense. Some people, they say that when you handwrite something, it's more potent in the sense that, the hand and the mind connection, and you're making a powerful experience. But if you don't enjoy handwriting, then typing is still powerful. If you don't enjoy typing, then speaking it, which I do on the
Mhm.
phone for that message I send to my friend every single day, that's
Right.
also powerful. So like you can say, well, this thing technically is more powerful than that thing. But I'm like, well, the most powerful thing is the one that you enjoy and the one that you do consistently.
Yeah.
That's really the most powerful one.
I love that. And I feel like you could just repeat that and repeat that. And I think people need to keep hearing that. Just keep doing what you enjoy because, as we go back to what we talked about in the beginning, all the societal conditioning and the way, we're conditioned negatively, that, you know, I think that there's so many rules and restrictions in society, right? I'm remembering being in school and, feeling like I had to have perfect handwriting. I do not like
Mm.
writing anymore. So as you mentioned that, and I don't like typing either. I do like voice recording. And, I just had to reframe when you said that. I'm like, I was able to give myself permission to do some scripting that way. So that was cool. Thank you. You just coached me.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we'd mentioned in like before possible coaching things. I don't know if that served as a good example, or if you had anything that you want to do specific, but I'm
Well,
I'm also
I
happy to
would,
go down that road.
yeah, if you want to just take the last few minutes just to do a mini coaching session,
Mm.
uh 4-minute session.
Well, I'd say this, the way it always like if I'm understanding properly or the right way, I mean, it's often in answer to a specific question someone has. I mean, other than that, I mean, I can speak, but it wouldn't really be
Sure.
coaching. It'd be
Okay.
more
I'm happy
more
to
insight.
ask a question and be a live example. Um,
Okay.
and I'm just curious, like connecting this to your class, is this something that people would have an opportunity to do with you too if they did your course?
No. So yeah, so I don't have any classes. I mean, I have the 90-day program, but
The
it
program.
doesn't include any one-on-one. And ironically, it's funny because like I said, I make myself available upon request, but the goal of the book, along with the 90-day program, along with the free YouTube content, is that while people, if they really think they need to talk to me, they can, but the goal is that they don't need me. The goal is that the book really handled everything. My 90-day program, Gravity of the Cosmos, supports them in their consistency, and my YouTube channel answers any loose questions. So the kind of goals I'm you know, not no offense to anybody that charges for coaching, but me, rather than being a coach that charges people and makes them feel like they need that for that piece, I wanted to kind of make it like hands off, where the book does all the heavy lifting for them because they only have to spend $4 on Kindle for it.
Yeah. Well, or Audible. I think it's a little bit more on Audible, but I
Mm.
personally love Audible. Um, well, I mean, I want to say that that's one reason I was, so inspired by you and the book because I've had a lot of experience in the field as, just a seeker. I would call myself a seeker, reading a lot of authors, listening to a lot of talks, joining programs. And I'm really turned off when people try to sell themselves, in this ongoing, almost codependent relationship, and I can feel the difference when I'm talking to somebody that, um, I'm not feeling like you've got strings, you're hooking me in with strings. And it's a clean and clear energy. And, I guess, in my, where I am with my inspired action is bringing people like you out into the collective more because I think, there are a lot of people that are sucked into these $10,000 programs. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If that resonates for them and they manifest that and that their truth in the moment, great. But I think that, being our own best teacher and guide is the way. And I know when I, said ask a question, I did not feel that, I guess, codependency. When I read your book, I
Mm.
really felt like I was given these tools and I just felt inspired. I want to say read, listen to, because that's how I process. And then, I'm able to talk it through with somebody close in my life. I guess if I was a coaching client and asked you a question or sent you an email, And I'm just curious, on your take on this. What about the timing, Andrew? I mean, as I feel this inspired action, I'm called to like hold off on the release of this podcast. I'm still um trying to coming up with a name because the original names I wanted are taken. There's a lot
Mhm.
of podcasts out there. But just wanting everything to line up, right? Like you kind of felt like there was a timing for your book. Um, how does, I guess, timing, how do you decipher that? And how would you recommend that I feel that out for myself?
Right. So it's technically two questions because it's the timing with your podcast and the timing in general.
Okay.
Because so the timing with the podcast of waiting things out, this is where it gets challenging, and only you could know the answer to this, which makes it all the more frustrating. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's like because you have to decide for yourself here. There's always this weird fine line of is it really about waiting for the energy to line up, which it probably is, but is it possible that there's a fear or a hesitation or a lack of confidence in it? It's like who knows like what the right thing is. So part of the whole thing about timing is deciphering whether you're holding yourself back for like the quote unquote right reasons. And to which the answer is, for me, in my experience, inspired action, which would include publishing the podcast, which would include
Mm.
coming up with a title, which would include going through these steps. For me, inspired action always comes swifter and with way more certainty when I'm simply, again, engaging in gratitude and feeling good every single day for just a
Hmm.
few minutes a day. Because what I'm doing is I'm maintaining a state of ease, a state of confidence, a state of certainty, and I'm letting that permeate and kind of, spread out into what these things might be. And I would hope that, just that it's a weird thing where it's like if I'm in your shoes, I'm not going to try to rush the podcast out, but I'm also going to make sure that while I'm waiting, I'm not waiting for the wrong reasons. I'm not, like, because at some point you just have to pull the trigger one way, at some point. And maybe you'll know when that point is. Maybe you'll come up with, like, the perfect name that isn't taken already. And like, okay, I feel good about this now. Or maybe you'll get a certain interview with a certain person and it's like, whoa, this has to be episode 3. And like
Hmm.
this has to come out before the summer based on one answer that this person gave. Like something is going to happen that might just like inspire you to do it. But if I'm you, I'm always waking up every morning saying, I don't know if today is the day I finally publish, but I do know that today can be the day. And just keep reminding yourself of that so that when the day finally comes, it feels like a natural, more seamless thing for you.
I like that. I don't know if,
Regarding timing
but
in
it
general,
can be.
it's applying that to everything, whatever's going on in
Yeah.
your life. Maybe it's something that you have a direct involvement in an action that you're going to take, or maybe you're waiting for something to happen that you technically don't have control over. And again, the answer for me is always like focusing on gratitude every single day and staying open and staying loose about the whole thing and saying, listen, someone's waiting for the timing of a job, for example. And example I gave to somebody not too long ago is imagine you're going after a $90,000 job, and the person who, you're in a waiting room and you do your interview and you leave, the next person lies about you and you don't get the job because they wanted the job for themselves. So they just cost you a $90,000 a year job, right? And my question would be, okay, would that upset you as much if you knew a month from now you're actually going to be offered a way better job with a way better commute,
Mm.
with way better colleagues for $200,000 a year? It's like all of a sudden, like it's a difference of like, the timing of this not working out and that person kind of screwed you over versus, well, you didn't get that thing right away because a month later you got a way better deal. So sometimes timing really is about something better coming along, better than the thing that you think you actually want.
I love that. Yeah. Things are happening for you. And that's the hindsight's 2020. We don't know all of the what that's going on behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
We
and
don't know the interwork. We don't like there's this massive web of energy and frequencies and connections and vibrations, even as we're speaking. And even as like going off into the future when people are actually going to be listening to this conversation. What you see in front of you, you could anyone listening right now, wave your hands just around in front of you, and you probably feel like air as you're doing that. Listen, you are actually pushing your hands through all these different energies and frequencies that your physical senses are not attuned to. There are things that you can't see, that you can't hear, that you can't touch or taste or smell that are still actually there. It's kind of a freaky thing to think
yeah,
about.
I know,
But we
absolutely.
really are in this unbelievably complicated, convoluted, but beautiful, vibrant soup of energy and vibration, only a small fraction of which we're actually experiencing with our physical senses.
Yeah, we're getting into the quantum. We can get into the metaverse. And I know that I personally have felt this, a huge shift since 2024 started.
Mm.
It depends on what you believe is the new year. I know time is an illusion in a sense, but um, people are talking about shifting into the 5D. I feel like consciousness is evolving. We are all evolving, together. So I'm glad we're having this conversation and helping
Me as well.
people evolve in some way. And you
And
just don't know what you say that's going to impact somebody, and when it's going to impact them. It's all
yeah. And you did something really cool right now that you might not realize. You just guaranteed that your podcast is being published in 2024 because you said 2024, and wouldn't it be an odd, awkward thing to publish this a year later and make it feel like an old conversation? So you've already decided, and I was very careful not because whenever I go on interviews, I don't know if they're coming out next week or next year. So I try not to date them. So I didn't mention 2024. But since you did, you just aided in your timing and pushed things forward for yourself, that guaranteeing it's going to come out this year.
okay. I just created something. It's funny because I felt that, like, I felt there was a certain time in the beginning of this year. Um, but yeah, I I love the again bite-sized kind of simple techniques that you offer, because I think, kind of summing this up, I know in my personal journey, and I think that anybody tuning in will, be on the spiritual journey in some way, the awakening journey, and have dabbled in law of attraction, or is really, into law of attraction, and wants to know more, or has been stuck, that it's it's about having fun. It's about enjoying it. And I am personally working a lot on my self-talk. And I really like that you talk to yourself in the third person. Andrew, I feel like that again, just listening to you share inspired me in some ways.
Awesome.
To just kind of shift how I talk to myself, because I think it softens my inner voice when I can say Sarah, and I can talk to myself like Elmo.
Yeah. And again, it's all about what is the best way to receive and perceive information. And, you know, Andrew in the third person, if that does it for me, awesome. Go with it. If it didn't work, I wouldn't do it. And,
Yeah.
it's not
And
like a normal thing. I'm not like the
I
wrestler of the rock and always describing himself in the third person, but
well,
just
that's
so you
funny.
have
I
to have
thought of
fun.
Elmo as a parent,
Yeah.
That's how Elmo talks about himself. But for me, that's like a playful metaphor, so I can come back to that. And I was also very inspired by your when I asked you about like your history, and how you said you go into the solution, and I really liked how you shared, you know, how you thought about your past now, because I think, I've dabbled in some narrative therapy, and I think that that's it's such a powerful method for people to like learn to rewrite their story. But you basically talked about like reading your narrative then as a very negative, critical narrative, and your friend, and you also have, you have this, maybe it's a different person, this accountability buddy now, but it sounds like, social relationships have inspired you to, kind of shift how you think about yourself. And now
Mm.
you're sharing this positive narrative with a friend, you know, I think that's a really cool parallel.
Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of leave people with this. The smallest decision in your life, or something that doesn't seem very consequential or seems consequential, but not for the reasons that you think it might, it could change everything. That friend who introduced me to that book, that kind of, Shad Helmster's book and Napoleon Hill's book, and how I went in that direction. I met that friend because we were both fans of the same band, and he was doing a website devoted to the band, and I was just like, checking out. That's how we became friends. Meaning, if
Yeah.
I never heard one song from that band and got into them, and then found that website, then that whole direction,
Hmm.
and then even the school I went to in college, one or two people that kind of took me under their wing and taught me about life and helped guide me in a faster fashion and brought things to my awareness. Like, just those two decisions
Hmm.
completely change who I am as a person. If those things happen, I'm definitely not having this conversation. I'm definitely not publishing this book. I guess we're unintentionally revealing my current state on an opinion on destiny, because I don't think, I mean, maybe I was destined to meet
Sure.
them, but I certainly wouldn't be destined to write the book without meeting them, because that path, it really took me. So whatever job someone has right now, whatever friends they have right now, whatever school they went to, they don't even know yet. They might have already made a decision that's setting off a chain reaction of events that's going to culminate
Hmm.
in a huge win, in a huge success, in a huge moment of bliss or happiness for them.
Wow, that's powerful. I think that's a beautiful way to like kind of package this up with a bow and offer it as a gift to the listeners. I think, you know, yeah, it comes back to the gratitude. So feeling grateful, even if something feels like a burden or there's maybe some discontent involved, that there's a reason that's happening for you
Mm,
right now. And how can you be grateful for what you have, any way, shape, or form?
yeah. And it's, if something negative is happening, it's not about, like, doing some tired of, like, oh, this is meant to work out, and then you don't even feel the emotion of that. You're actually more annoyed by that. It's like, for me, it's more about, like, whether or not you're enjoying the present moment. The question is, what you strategically do in order to invite a pleasant moment tomorrow and the next day and the next day. What you can you do strategically in service to yourself to help your life unfold in better ways. And for me, it's as easy and simple as 5 minutes a day of gratitude, and no muss, no fuss, no pressure. And the beauty of it is, if I'm lying to you or I'm just wrong, the 5 minutes that you spend every day feeling gratitude when you otherwise would have been feeling stress or worry or depression or whatever negative emotion that you could put, it's a win in and of itself. Just that moment of actually feeling the gratitude, just by trying that, you're winning, to say nothing of whatever results might manifest afterwards for you.
Yeah, I love that. And what you also kind of touched on was being honest about your authentic feelings in the moment. The whole spiritual bypassing. I think, that's a trap a lot of people get into when they get into this stuff. Instead of, looking at you know, a pile of crap and covering it, with roses, can say, okay, there's a pile of crap right here. It's not something that I love. This is how I feel right now. And I know, as a therapist, like it's so important to validate your feelings and then, just honoring where you are, then you can, also focus on where you want to move to, right?
Yeah. It's like, you don't need to lie to yourself in order to constructively move from that point.
And it probably makes it easier to move when you are honest, right?
In my opinion and experience, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. Is there
Yeah.
any final message that you want to share?
Well, I mean, hopefully this was a valuable conversation for people. If anyone wants to check out my books, they're on Amazon. And you can go to awesomemarvelous.com, and that'll show you all my books. It also has a link to my YouTube channel. So don't feel like you have to pull out your wallet in order to get content from me. You can just as easily get the free content on YouTube. But whether you buy any of the books or you go to the YouTube channel, it is my sincere intention and wish that my content serves you in some way, shape, or form. So just check it out at awesomemarvelous.com, and I really hope you like it. And Sarah, thank you so much for having me today. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
And I'm going to put a link to all of your website and your YouTube in the description as well when I publish this. So
Awesome. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. It was a pleasure.